The Oscars are over, and oh my gosh, I wasn't surprised by many things. I was slightly surprised about the timing because, as far as I can recall, usually maybe I'm wrong, but in my mind, usually they start at about 8 p.m. But this year they started at 8:30 and ran till midnight, which at a certain point, I'm happy I didn't miss the Best Actor announcement because I think I passed out for about 3 minutes because I woke up in the middle of them doing the recap of clips from the Best Actor nominations, almost thinking, oh my gosh, I think I missed something. Um, there weren't any surprises with the acting categories. Like I thought, Jeff Bridges won for Crazy Heart, Sandra Bullock won for The Blind Side. We had Monique win for Best Supporting Actress, and we had for Best Supporting Actor we had Christoph Waltz. Vol. I said it wrong the first time. I know I did. Um, but it's the German pronunciation. I'd have to look that up again. But there were a few things that I caught my eyes on mistakes. I took a few notes. I couldn't help it. I was actually surprised by the best adaptation screenplay going to Precious because most of the time, all the other award shows, it seems like that's gone to Jason Reitman for Up in the Air. So that was actually a pleasant surprise, and the the actual adaptation writer did look surprised themselves as well because he was shaking somewhat like a leaf and he sat there almost saying he couldn't really figure out who to say thank you to. And some people were like, "Oh, they always know who to say thank you to." No, no, no. If you looked at him, you would have realized he really had no clue. um Also, they had the horror tribute, which was kind of interesting. Um and I don't know if they've ever done that before. Maybe yes, maybe no, or done just a tribute to a specific genre, excuse me, that they don't usually show in the award shows. But it was interesting because you had Taylor Lautner and Kristen Stewart from the Twilight series come out and present it. Now, the oddest thing in those clips to me were the fact that some of them I didn't some of the movies that were actually featured in that I didn't consider horrors. Like they had Misery, which I don't consider a horror. I consider like maybe more suspense or thriller or something like that. Also, for some strange reason, they added in a clip of New Moon, which I was like, not so much a horror. But beyond that, and still, I still can't help it. I'd ask why? That's not a horror film. Um, the opening number was pretty nice. I enjoyed seeing Neil Patrick Harris, which is something I didn't really see coming. I did feel like they had a few technical difficulties throughout the show. The first one being they had Neil Patrick Harris's opening, and he mentioned a few people in his actual song and dance. One of them being James Cameron. You would assume they do practices for these things, but it was kind of funny when they mentioned James Cameron. They have a camera just hit James Cameron when he's mentioned during the song, and he's in complete darkness. Someone should have been on that. The same happened, I believe. They also mentioned Meryl Streep, and you could at least see her a little bit better, but no one lit her up with a light. Okay. Um, Also, the John Hughes tribute was very nice. I didn't know about that. They've probably mentioned it before, but I had not looked on that. It was very nice and enjoyable to see. You see some of his most memorable actors people that he almost launched single-handedly into the stratosphere in the acting world. I was kind of a little concerned for Molly Ringwald. I wasn't sure if it was she was holding back emotions or she had this really pained look on her face that didn't just look right when she actually came out with Matthew Broderick in the beginning. Um, Also, I loved. I just feel like there were some issues where people weren't communicating with presenters as well as other things. Sandra Bullock was presenting for cinematography, and it was kind of funny because at one point she looked slightly confused. Like she did her monologue that was on the teleprompter. She looked off screen to the left or to the right. I can't recall immediately at this moment, but as if they were, you know, you'd assume, maybe she assumed they were going to roll some clips, but they didn't, and then she looked back and then read off the teleprompter the actual nominees. Another thing that I thought was kind of hilarious was, well, I didn't think this one particularly was hilarious, but you know, the In Memoriam, I think that was really nice how they actually had a live entertainer play. I cannot recall his name necessarily. Someone, if you'd like to just give me that information, because I can't remember, actually play on stage rather than just have the orchestra having it a little bit. It was a little bit more personal touch that way. Now it was a small issue when they started the In Memoriam, which I guess they do on some. I think they've done this before in the past, where it took a few extra seconds for them to change it over from, you know, seeing the camera's view on stage of watching the Memoriam to them actually switching it for people who are at home who can't, you know, don't get to see all three screens, because it was a three-screened thing where the first one was Patrick Swayze. They had three screens, and you couldn't see all three screens immediately. And then they kept going, and then finally someone was like, "Oh yeah, at home viewers," and switched it onto the main television sets. Presentation of Best Original Score of it was kind of odd. That could have been something that could have been cut out. Where it's nice to have dancers and kind of give it a new twist, but it just carried on. And that could have definitely cut the show down at least by 5 minutes. I felt I might have been sitting there for 10. I might be wrong. Someone else needs to tell me how long that went on. It was nice to have dancers, but it was kind of unnecessary. Um, you've got the Oh yeah, you've got the original score winner after they did that whole little presentation. I don't know what they did because it was kind of funny. He walked up the stage and looked like he was lost. Because they, you know, you had Jennifer Lopez and you had Sam Worthington were maybe in the middle of the stage, and then suddenly they moved. And once he got out of his seat to go get his award, he walked up to the stage. He looked like, where am I supposed to go? And then someone apparently had to wave him over, like, over here. Uh, Also, it was kind of interesting how they were doing the. They kind of took the idea that they had last year. Maybe they've been doing this longer than I assume, where they had people come out before the Best Actor and Best Actress nominations. Last year they did it with previous winners doing a huge little own round table talk thing, which was odd. But this year they did it where you have five people who were talking about the nominees, which took a little bit extra time. I know it is nice to get your ego kind of stroked. But it was one of those things like, oh, I prefer to just see the clips of the nominations. It goes a little bit faster, hence, you know, people could have been in bed a little bit sooner as well. Uh, and it was kind of funny where you had Peter Sarsgaard talking about Carey Mulligan, and at one point you realize the cameraman is focusing on Carey Mulligan's face, but you could see the teleprompter going right behind her head, and then slowly tries to adjust so that no one notices. Well, I noticed. Also, I was really excited that I was wrong about the Best Director and it went to Kathryn Bigelow. I wasn't really surprised about that. I was happy for her. And I was very happy that The Hurt Locker won for Best Picture. Now, I do feel like someone needed. I don't know if Kathryn Bigelow was in shock, but it looked like she needed to be carried off after the awards because um, she won for Best Director, was walked off stage, then won for Best Picture, walked back on stage, and at that point, she looked like she was going to fall over. And the point where Steve Martin and Alec Baldwin come up and kind of hold on to her as she's holding on to her Oscars, you know, obviously that was slightly improv, but it also looked like it was a good way to stabilize her because she looked like she was going to fall down. But in general, the Oscars weren't horrible. It was pretty good, and I look forward to next year, which is in 364 more days.